So I guess the moral to this story is if you feel something, don't tell pastor because he's going to put you up here. So he basically wanted me to tell you guys how I got started tithing. So, and I'm just going to read it because if I don't, I'm really going to mess it up. So, how I got started on my tithing journey. With two young boys, the youngest being diagnosed autistic, I started going to church. Now, I'd accumulated a ton of medical debt trying to help out my youngest son and paying bills, and I put them all on the credit cards. So I'm really shaking bad. So at that time in my life, I was behind on all my bills, received multiple phone calls monthly from bill collectors, and had no clue how I was ever going to get caught up. So at church, I watched as the offering plate went by and people putting loose change in, singles and $5 bills. And some even put in envelopes. So that's what I did. I started putting a couple dollars a week in the offering plate as it went by. Then I had a pastor who did a couple services on tithing and talked about 10% of your income. And to me, that just blew me away. I couldn't even pay my bills. How was I going to start tithing 10%? So I prayed and sought God out, and I heard him saying that I really started tithing with all the huge debt that I had, and that I didn't have to start at 10%, that I could start at 2%. So that's what I did. And the 2% wasn't off of what I brought home, but it was what I made before taxes. So I started tithing 2% off of what I made. So 6 to 8 months later, after doing that weekly, every week, I just felt God saying, it's time to step it up a little bit. And we went to 4%. And after a few more months, we went to 6%. And then we went to 8%. And then somewhere between 3.5 years, I found out I was tithing 10%. As I look back over that time, I don't know how, but managed to pay off all my credit card debt and my medical bills. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the tithing was easy because it definitely was not. And I'm still having troubles today because of the new circumstances that I have. It's a new leap of faith for me when I'm doing this. So, as Pastor Mike just mentioned, last year on the 4th of December, I signed papers to finalize my divorce with my wife, who told me that there was no way we were going to stay together. So now I'm down to one income, paying spousal support weekly, two kids in college, and trying to do things with the Friday night kids. And at times, it's a little overwhelming. So a few months ago, as I was whining to God about my finances, I went to the mailbox and got in the mail, and I found this letter. And it just simply says, to Jim Clark. So I had no clue what was in it, so I opened it up, and there's a little note that just simply says, Jim, we are so thankful for what you do. May God continue to bless you and your family. And inside this envelope was a lot of cash. And it was just reaffirming to me that God's got my back if I just keep doing what he's asking me to do. So basically, I'm up here because I want to encourage every one of you that if you haven't been giving your 10%, start. And if you've been given 10%, has it become comfortable? And are you giving now really out of more being comfortable than really trusting God? And if you are, maybe kick it up a notch. And hopefully that you too will one day come up here and share a story that can encourage somebody else. Now, I told Pastor Mike that back in his office that I really don't believe that this ARC initiative stuff is to pay down the church debt. I really don't believe that. I believe really that this is God's way of asking us to develop a closer relationship with him. And if we can develop that closer relationship with him, the Thursday night basketball guys, the Friday night kids, the 5th and 6th graders that do things, we can impact so many more people when we trust God with the little bit of stuff that we have.